Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of FSU Coach Live. My name is Tim Baghurst, and today's guest is John Sgromolo. He is the athletic director for Clay County. John, thank you so much for joining me. I'm curious, how does one become a county athletic director?
Awesome. Well, hey Tim, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here. It's going to be a great time with you on FSU Coach. It's kind of interesting. The most of us that are county athletic directors, I think there's 28 or 29 of us in the state of Florida. We're responsible for a group of other athletic directors. So in my county, I'm responsible for 7 junior high and 7 high school athletic directors. And I guess you become a county AD hopefully after you've already been a school-based athletic director. I guess that's the process. If you want to know how I got there, I kind of always wanted to be an athletic administrator. Judd Damon, the athletic director at Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, he was my athletic director. I was a baseball player there for 4 years from 2008 to 2012. And I saw his impact on the student athlete experience. I saw how his decisions as the AD made things better for us as student athletes. When I got done playing professional baseball, I said, you know what, that's what I want to do. I want to create better experiences for kids, and you can do that by being an athletic director.
So what do? County AD, you just sit in an office and command ADs?
That's right. Yeah, no. So we're down here in the ivory tower, as they would call it. No. Being a county athletic director, you do a lot of different things. And I say it all the time. AD stands for all duties, right? For example, I'm the direct liaison with Clay County District Schools from the Florida High School Athletic Association. I'm a certified CPR AED first aid instructor. So I do all the CPR training for all the coaches in our district. I facilitate recognition programs for our student athletes. I facilitate an athletic leadership training program for our coaches. So I do some coaching of our coaches that would like to get into leadership roles. Um, I I could just go on and on. There's a lot of different things that I do, and I think that's one of the greatest things that I enjoy about this job. Probably most importantly, I support our athletic directors. So I provide professional development to them along with day-to-day operational support for their athletic department.
And from a funding standpoint, how are you funded? Because you said not all counties have a county AD.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm a district office level administrator. My title is coordinator of district athletics. I'm a part of the senior cabinet here in Clay County Schools, and it really just depends. I think some counties that are smaller, because Florida is extremely diverse. So we have some counties that there's one high school, they wouldn't really need a county AD. Most of our large districts, Dade, Duval, Broward, Orange County, they all have county athletic directors. And then like-sized districts like Clay, Leon County has a county AD. Think of West Escambia, Alachua, and then Clay. We're kind of like-sized districts. So the biggest thing, though, is that, and I think the greatest benefit for school districts to have a county AD is there's a direct report to the superintendent's office as it pertains to athletics. And I can just tell you, in our district alone, we have over 6,000 students that participate in athletics, and that's a big operation with over 300 coaches and 6,000 student athletes. There needs to be guidance and leadership coming from the top, and you want to make sure that the message is consistent as well. So it's an important position, and I think our district is excited that we have this position, and we'd like to see other districts incorporate it as well.
Yeah. You mentioned the size of the student body, the student athletes, the many, many coaches. What are some of the challenges you're seeing in sports in schools at the moment?
Well, I think that you could say this for anything in education, maybe even at the university level. Funding is always an issue, right? Some of the bigger issues we're seeing, though, in athletics, the labor shortage. Okay, so we're having trouble finding bus drivers. We're having trouble finding officials. We're having trouble finding coaches, right? So the national labor shortage that the United States is facing right now, and probably abroad, is not athletics is not exempt from that. So we're having trouble hiring those folks, finding those people to come in. And then Coaching retention is a big thing, with all these other jobs and other carrots is what I would call opportunities that are out there for folks. You are starting to see some coaches who are veterans who are choosing to leave the profession for a more lucrative position or a less time consuming position.
Yeah, you said lucrative position. It's interesting because you're in Florida like me, and what I hear when I travel around Florida is coaches looking over the border to Alabama and Georgia and other states going, well, why are they being paid so much more than us? Can you talk a little bit about what the pay structure is like in Florida and maybe what we can do to try to make that equitable so we're not losing coaches to other places?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tough, and I think it's like I said earlier, the state of Florida is so diverse. You if you're a private school coach, there's an opportunity to make some money depending on how that private school is structured. But for most public schools, you're paid a supplement. So if you do that supplement divided by the amount of hours that you spend with your student athletes, you
Hmm.
probably don't have enough to buy a cheeseburger at McDonald's. But nevertheless, I think there is something to be said for the intrinsic value of being a coach. And we collect paychecks in a lot of different ways other than money, right? So now I'm not saying that that's a reason to not coach or whatever it may be, or to coach. But with that being said, I think that other states um, have the opportunity to financially prioritize coaching and what coaches do, and that's something in the state of Florida I'd like to see a little bit better. Full disclosure, I am very proud of our district. We're around fourth or fifth highest paying in the state of Florida for athletic coaches in Clay County. So, and I'm super proud that our superintendent continues that charge to prioritize athletics, because I think sometimes senior level educational administrators don't understand the data that interscholastic athletics brings to the academic achievement levels. So for us in our district, our combined grade point average for our varsity athletes the past 2 years have been 3.37 and 3.38, right? So when you look at our district as a whole, even though we're a top 10 school district in the state of Florida, that number is significantly higher than the district average, which hovers around 2.9, 3.0 ish, that area for all students, right? So, not to mention the benefits of coaching that we all know. But you're right. There's a lot of room for growth in the state of Florida for coaching compensation, and I think that we got to keep lobbying for that.
One of the consistent themes I get as I talk to coaches, athletic directors around the state is this argument for not getting training. And I say that as kind of that doesn't make sense. Coaches are telling me, well, I'm not going to go pay for training, i.e., our master's degree as an example, when it really doesn't benefit me as a coach in the school system. It's not really financially worth it. I'm going to get into debt. So why would I go get training? Why would I go to clinics? Why would I go to this? Do you see maybe if you put yourself in the position that you did have the power to change things, what could you do or what would you suggest be done to help ratify that? Because we do have a real problem with coaches being undertrained in general.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because the first thing I think of as a county athletic director, one of my jobs is also to kind of be the risk manager of athletics, to kind of keep an eye on things and make sure we're being safe. And you would think that that's a big factor, right? That you're going to want coaches who are qualified to put students in these types of athletic situations. But really, what I think a great thing that could be done is to some kind of recurring compensation for certification, right? So
Mm.
I know for me as an athletic director, I'm actually a nationally recognized CAA. It's called a Certified Athletic Administrator through the NIAAA, which is our National Athletic Association for athletic directors. And some districts in the state of Florida give their athletic directors like a $500, $1,000, $1,500 stipend each year for achieving that, right? So that's definitely something that we would be able to motivate coaches. Hey, if you get this certification, you will get this recurring payment as long as your certification is valid. And there just has to be some sort of incentive. And I'm hoping one day that that maybe the state legislature could help out with this. And maybe they need to see the data that of why interscholastic athletics need great people leading it.
Well, I think a lot of it as well is common sense too. If you want
Correct.
great people in the positions that you want them in, you have to incentivize them to be there.
Right.
And at the moment, we rely on the kindness and generosity of many coaches who step forward and give really their time for almost nothing for the benefit of these student athletes.
And there's a quote that I want to share that it's kind of like through the same vein of what we're talking about, and that is, show me your wallet and your schedule, and I'll show you where your priorities are. And that's something that I think is very important, that we're prioritizing interscholastic athletics, because, like I said, we could talk all day about the benefits of student athletes being involved in athletics, whether it's giving them a safe place to be when they get out of school, giving them sometimes even with some schools it's a place where they can get a hot meal. It's a place where they feel valued, they have autonomy, these types of things. So it's really important that we continue to fight to prioritize athletics.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've also heard over the last 6 months is just this beat down on high school, junior high athletics of, well, I'm going to put my kid in club sports. I'm going to put them in AAU basketball. I'm not going to put them in high school sports. In fact, my club sports coach doesn't allow them to play in schools. And as a consequence, we see sometimes a challenge to fill a roster in a school system. I'm curious what your take is on that, coming from somebody who supports the school systems, when so many parents and others are pushing for kids not to participate in school sports.
We're at a very interesting dichotomy with the school sport versus travel sport conversation. And here's what I will say. I'm not anti travel sports. I do believe that there's a place for it. I believe from a college recruiting perspective, there's a lot of benefits to it. Being a former baseball player myself, having played professional baseball, understanding the recruiting process and all that, there is a place for it. But I can tell you this: educational based athletics uh, provide a level of accountability that travel sports will never be able to do. And that's something that is so important, is coaches have the ability in educational based athletics to hold student athletes accountable, inside and outside of the classroom. I think that the problem with travel sports is it has become so watered down, with so many programs that are driven by, let's be honest about it, that are driven by money, that the ethics sometimes tend to go out the window, right? So you'll have a coach that'll be getting paid a nice monthly stipend to coach, which they should. If we could pay educational based athletic coaches what club coaches get paid, we'd be doing it right, in my opinion. So you ask for a remedy, there you go. I think that's the remedy. So maybe, no, you never know. That could be one day, that could be the model. I think we get stuck in this is the way we've always done it. Well, what if you paid your school coach the same coaching fee that you paid your club coach? They'd probably stick around, right? So, and who knows, maybe public school districts will create that model one day. But ultimately, there's a place for travel sports, but the gold standard of athletic development for kids that are 14 to 18 years old, in my opinion, is educational based athletics.
These are some of the things that I've been seeing, right, around traveling around Florida and beyond. What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing from a higher level view that coaches and athletic directors really need to be aware of? Maybe things that are coming up that they need to start thinking about in regards to their job, their profession.
Well, I can tell you this. I think one of the biggest things that I want our folks in Clay County, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago at our meeting. As county athletic directors, we're always fighting for you. We're always advocating for you. You asked me at the beginning of the show, what I do. And part of my job, it's kind of funny, but I think that part of my job is I'm a lobbyist. And that's at the district office. I'm lobbying with the superintendent. I'm lobbying with HR. I'm lobbying with business affairs to get resources. I think one of my biggest struggles, and all county ADs struggle with it, is that there are limited resources, right? So just as much as we want to pay coaches more, there are people out there advocating to pay the music teacher more. They want to pay the school psychologist more. They want to pay the librarian more, right? So there's a constant power struggle for a limited amount of resources. And I can tell you too, one of the biggest things we've seen in the state of Florida over this school year is a real big uptick in a lack of sportsmanship, and it's been bad. I mean, some of these ejections that we're seeing in the state are what I would call severe, egregious, aggressive ejections, where you're getting parents getting involved with officials, you're getting coaches involved with officials, a lot of athlete on athlete physical abuse. And that's something that really concerns me as an educational based athletic director. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take parents. It's going to take the communities. It's going to take coaches to kind of cool the temperature. Our society coming out of COVID is not the same society it was before COVID. So we're really going to have to educate people on why we do what we do.
So why do you think that this level of sportsmanship has become a problem recently?
I wish I had the golden answer. I think a lot of it has to do with when COVID happened, like when the shutdown initially happened, and you think about the amount of time, even here in the state of Florida, where we opened pretty quickly after we shut down, there was still that 4 to 5 month period of time where parents had to go to work, right? So they were not able to supervise their kids as much as they would have if their students were in school in person. So I think that there was a little bit of a disconnect there. Am I blaming parents? No, I'm not totally blaming parents. But I do think that created some issues of students not having structure. And here's the deal. It goes back to what I said previously. That's why, and that's a great example of how important educational based athletics are, is it provides opportunities for students to have supervision and be structured and have goals. So that's another thing. I mean, you talk about the change in educational experience because of COVID. I also think about the change of social interactions, right? So I can tell you, me personally, that was before I got this job, and I'm an introvert. I'm not an introvert. I'm an extroverted person, and I love having conversations with folks and being in the mix and being with my friends. And I even personally, as a at the time, as a 30-year-old grown man, was struggling. My wife's pretty introverted, and she's like, you've got to get out of the house. Like, you've got to go do something, So I think there's a multitude of factors. The bigger question is, how do we get back on track? How do we reel it back in? And how do we, keep the main thing the main thing?
Okay, we're going to take a real short break. We're going to do a little video promoting FSU Coach. We'll be right back in just a minute. The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring. All of our classes have the word coach or coaching in them, and they're taught by coaches for coaches.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills, even some of the mental performance behind what it goes into being an athlete. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. So I thought joining this master's program would help me learn different ways to attack my job. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
All right, we're back. I'm with John Sgromolo. He's the athletic director or county athletic director for Clay County here in Florida. John, it's not often I get somebody on who's got that top-down look. And one of the discussions that has been going on with National Federation of High Schools. It's gone on at FACA here in Florida, Florida Athletic Coaches Association, is officials. And this continual quest for we need more officials. I got an email this week from NFHS talking about the need for more officials. And in speaking with FACA, some involved in FACA, one of the comments was the coaches themselves don't know the rules, which creates this drama when the officials are making calls, which causes the officials to get stressed out, the coaches to get stressed out. And then the official says, you know what? Why am I doing this? I thought I was here to help kids and do something for a little paycheck. It's not worth it. I'm done. And then all of a sudden we have this cycle of we need to find another official. How do we help acquire and retain more officials in schools? Because it is a clear national problem.
No question. I think that the answer to that, in my opinion, is a multifaceted one. First, I think it takes great leadership from all stakeholders, right? So from the officials associations being proactive, to the FHSAA being proactive, to county athletic directors, school-based athletic directors. One of the things that I mean by being proactive is you mentioned coaches not knowing the rules, right? So I would think as a school-based athletic director, one way to help this problem is ensure in your preseason coaches meeting that your coach actually has a rule book, right? That sounds simple and funny, but I can guarantee you there are a multitude of coaches that have never even seen it, right? So as the leader of the athletic department, that would be a good thing to add to your checklist. Hey, I'm going to just, place this on their desk just so they do have it, right? So at least you are giving them the ability to do that. The second thing I would say is the recruitment of young people to get involved is important. I think that's a stone we got to continue to turn over, to invite them out. I think a lot of people don't know that that's an option, right? They don't even know where to start. But I have seen some good resources of the NFHS and the FHSAA, opening those things up on social media so people can get involved. But thirdly, I wholeheartedly believe this is the number one problem. It's sportsmanship. I think that if people knew that they could go out and call a game and not be berated and not be harassed and not be inappropriately yelled at, there's a difference between, come on, that was a bad call, to, hey, I'm going to meet you in the parking lot. And that's the line I think that most officials, I was a high school varsity baseball coach for 7 years. Most officials are okay with you, expressing displeasure. But when you cross the line of dignity and respect, that's a huge problem, right? So that's something that, once again, it's going to take all of us ensuring that we're promoting the best positive environment in athletic events as we possibly can. And what I tell people is this, and I say this with our leaders: if you see something and you don't say anything, if you see this happen and you don't say anything, you're condoning it. You're endorsing that behavior, right? Jocko Willink, one of my favorite authors, ex-Navy SEAL, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate, and what you tolerate becomes the standard. So I think that's a big thing. Leaders have to have courage. When you see these types of things happen, you need to address the person and say, we're not going to do that here. And that's something that I've seen a lot. We're starting to see a lack in the courage of leaders to approach these situations to make sure that we can keep officials.
Yeah, the phrase that I'm mindful of is, if you permit it, you promote it.
I like it.
Yeah. Do you think it's come to a point where schools have to act more decisively in terms of what the expectations are for audience? Because, okay, let's be real. Coaches are out of line sometimes. Players are out of line sometimes. They shouldn't be. Players are often out of line because their coaches are out of line. But many of these issues come from parents or fans in the stands who, as you alluded to, can basically do or say what they want at the moment without too much recourse. Is it the responsibility of schools and school districts to start saying, you know what, if we hear or see any of this, you're banned. You're not coming back, because we're protecting our players, we're protecting our coaches, we're protecting our officials, and making sure that we're in a safe, welcoming environment. Because what if I'm taking, you've got a kid, I've got two kids. I don't like taking them into an environment where they hear language they should never hear or anger that they should never experience. Is it time for school districts and schools themselves to start doing this?
Absolutely. I think expectations are vital, and it's our job as athletic administrators to make sure that expectations are clear and repeated often. So like when your teams have their parent meeting at the beginning of the year, it's vital for the athletic director to show up, right, and say, "Hi, I'm the athletic director. We're so excited for this next season of Clay High Blue Devil athletics. But we also want to make sure you understand what our goal is here, right? Our goal is that your children have a great experience. And there's only one way that that's going to happen. That is if you behave how you are supposed to behave. So let me give you some examples. This would be good behavior. This would be unacceptable behavior. And just so you know, because this is our expectations, these are the repercussions if we can't follow our behavioral expectations, right? So the problem, and I'm not saying it's not a problem that can't be solved, but the uphill battle is inconsistency, right? And I will say this kind of goes back to club sports. In most clubs, there are some that do a good job, but in a lot of clubs, if you get ejected from a game as an athlete or a coach or a spectator, you're right back in there the next game. So we've even seen that happen here in public education where we have someone get ejected, a student athlete, and I got suspended 5 games. What are you talking about? You can't do that. So that's the inconsistency going back to the club sports and the educational based athletics that we've got to continue to make sure everyone understands expectations. But to answer your question, absolutely, as an educational based institution, we need to make sure that we're getting involved in creating good environments for everyone. Absolutely.
Hmm. I want to change tack a little bit. I was giving a presentation earlier this morning to a group of athletic directors in Florida, and one of the questions I had, which I think is a really good one, is we've got a situation in Florida, and I suspect around the country now, where a lot of the coaches who are in schools don't actually work in the schools. They're not teachers. They're mom and dad who work out in the community and then come in to coach in the afternoon. And he expressed how hard it was to develop that team camaraderie, that unit, when they're coming in, teaching their sport, and then leaving. Do you have any suggestions for athletic directors on how to build that kind of unity, how to make sure that the coaches are all communicating with each other and are following the vision and philosophy, values of the school, when literally they could be coming and showing up at a football field and walking away and never setting foot in an academic building?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a few different techniques that you can use. One of them is obviously making sure that they understand the expectation of the coaches meeting, right? And scheduling that coaches meeting if you're the athletic director, with all of your coaches at a time that they can attend, right? I think sometimes we just say, you know what? Tim Backhurst, who coaches our pickleball team, he doesn't get off work till 4 o'clock. Well, maybe that first coaches meeting we're going to have at 6 to make sure everyone can be there, right? And we can have a 30-minute social before the event where everyone gets to talk to each other and meet each other. You can bring them to the front and introduce them, right? So everyone knows who everyone is. And then from there, I was always a huge advocate when I was at Ridgeview High School for doing any kind of team building that I could with my coaches. So we always had a Christmas party. We always had an end of the year get together. We had a coaches awards ceremony type thing. And anytime that you, I guess they'd call it break bread with people, you're building relationships. So as an athletic director, you've really got to capitalize on those moments. Something else that I'd like to see us continue working on is develop a community coach blueprint, right? So we know all of the negatives of community coaches, but we also understand the realization that they're here to stay for right now, and we need to leverage them and not try to eliminate them. So trying to figure out what works best, what's the best way to communicate with that coach. Maybe they have a job that you can't call them, so can they text all day? Do they want email? just really hammering down each individual. There's not a one size fits all approach. And I think that's where some leaders fail is, oh, well, they're not on campus, so I'm not going to be able to make it work. That's not a good leadership plan. You may want to look at what can I control and then leverage what you can.
Mm. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time and wrap this up. I wondered if you had any advice for coaches, given that really this is the emphasis of our program. You've been a coach, you've been an athlete, you've been an athletic director, now you're a county athletic director. What do coaches need to know in order to be successful?
This is going to sound really, really simple, but being removed from coaching, the last year I coached was 2019, and then COVID happened, and then I became the county AD. But I can tell you, being at that 30,000 foot view, and this is going to sound so corny, but I truly believe it from the bottom of my heart. You've got to remember you are making a difference. You truly are, whether the money's bad, whether the parents are emailing you, whether you're struggling to be an English teacher and be the basketball coach. These kids look up to you. You are their role model. They watch your every single move. So it's important to make sure that you keep your chin up high and your head on straight, and continue to work hard for these kids, because what you do does impact their future in a very, very big way.
Hmm. And I know you're fairly busy on social media, providing a lot of great content. If somebody wants to ask you a question, maybe listening to this on the podcast, et cetera, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to reach out to me, feel free to. You can send me a direct message on Twitter at Coach Sgromolo, and I'd love to connect. Yeah, I'm a big social media guy. I think that it's a great tool. It gets a lot of negative. Social media sometimes gets very negatively connotated, but just imagine the amount of information that we have access to. Hence, how I met you, Tim Backhurst, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been awesome. And Tim, I just want to tell you publicly, all of the content that you put out is tremendously appreciated. You are an advocate for coaching, not just in the state of Florida, but in our nation. And people have eyes on what you're doing at Florida State, and I'm super excited to continue to watch you develop as well.
Thank you. Well, just before we go, we had somebody sneak in a challenge from LinkedIn. So a question rather. James 10 says, what's the most challenging aspect of your job?
I would say lack of resources. I would say, one of the things that I really want to do is help people, right? So you get in this kind of a position when you want to serve others. That's my job. My job is to support athletics and athletic administrators. And sometimes there's just not enough resources. So I try to get as creative as I can with private partnerships and those types of things. But that's probably the most challenging part, is navigating a lack of resources, for sure.
Well, my thanks to John. And of course, my name's Tim Backhurst. Thanks so much for watching. Just a reminder, every couple of weeks, we interview somebody on this show. So be sure to subscribe or like wherever you're watching from. But until then, thanks so much for watching.